The night before the big Thanksgiving showcase, my girlfriend had a final rehearsal. I'd spent the afternoon making her favorite homemade chicken noodle soup, the kind my mom always made, and brought it over in a thermos. I was just outside the door to the green room when I heard her talking with her best friend, Chloe. "Sophia, are you sure about changing the performance to a love song duet with Leo? Aren't you worried Caleb will get jealous?" Sophia's reply was casual, indifferent. "Let him. I don't really care. He's like a little kid sometimes, always so sensitive." Chloe pressed, "But you're not worried he'll actually break up with you?" Sophia laughed. "He's been attached at my hip for 10 years, since we were freshmen in high school. Honestly, it would be a relief. I'm so sick of him." It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head, a chilling shock that went straight to the bone. 10 years of my life, 10 years of love, meant nothing to her. Fine. If that's how she felt, I could take a hint. I turned to leave, but Leo Vance stepped around the corner, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "Caleb, here, to see Sophia." His voice was smooth as silk. His eyes drifted down to the thermos in my hand. "Bringing her soup again? Dude, you're the ultimate boyfriend." The words felt like a needle, sinking silently into the most sensitive part of my soul. Before I could even form a reply, the green room door swung open. Sophia and Chloe walked out. Her eyes landed on me immediately, then on the familiar silver thermos. Her finely sculpted eyebrows knitted together, and a wave of undisguised annoyance washed over her face. "Seriously? More chicken soup? Can't you ever do something different? I've had it for days. I'm so over it." Her tone was light, but it felt like a dull blade sawing back and forth across my heart. She seemed to have forgotten that just last week, when she'd first tasted it, she'd smiled and said it was delicious, that she could drink it every day. Because of that one sentence, I'd been getting up at the crack of dawn to buy fresh ingredients and let it simmer for hours. Leo stepped forward, producing a fancy-looking bubble tea from behind his back, as if by magic. A smug smile touched his lips, his voice familiar and caring. "I figured you'd be thirsty, Soph. Got you this. Brown sugar boba, oat milk, light ice. Just how you like it." The irritation on Sophia's face vanished, replaced by a genuine spark of delight in her eyes. She practically snatched it from him, punching the straw through the plastic seal with a satisfying pop. She took a long, deep sip and then beamed at Leo. "You just get me." In that moment, I think my blood actually froze. My fingertips went numb. I remember it so clearly. The summer after we graduated high school, we were walking past a boba shop, and I offered to buy her one. She'd looked at the long line and said, with absolute certainty, "To stay in shape, I'm never touching that high fructose garbage. Ever." She'd said it with a kind of proud, disciplined air. Now I knew the truth. It wasn't that she didn't drink it. She just didn't want to drink one that I bought. Leo stood beside her, his gaze flicking over to me. There was no triumphant gloating in his eyes, just a faint, almost imperceptible pity. That pity was sharper and more painful than any open mockery. Without saying a word, he had completely defeated me. Sophia took another gulp of her tea, as if just remembering I was there. Her eyes fell back on my thermos, her voice dismissive. "Just take the soup back. I don't want it today. And don't bother making it tomorrow, either. It's a waste of time and money." With that, she handed the rest of her bubble tea to Leo. Right in front of me, he took the straw and drank from it. The action was fluid, natural. The chill in my heart deepened. Sophia was a notorious germaphobe. She never let anyone touch her drinks. Not even me, her boyfriend. But now, she was letting another man share her straw. Leo's smile never wavered. He spoke softly to Sophia. "Rehearsal's about to start. We should head in." Sophia nodded, looped her arm through Chloe's, and walked toward the auditorium without a second glance in my direction, as if I were a complete stranger. Leo followed them, his stride unhurried. Soon, I was alone in the hallway, holding a thermos of soup that had taken hours to prepare. The metal felt cool to the touch, but it burned my palms. The bubble tea, that satisfied smile, Leo's effortless charm, her back as she walked away without a second thought. The images flashed through my mind. 10 years. I'd spent 10 years thinking I knew every little detail of her life, all her likes and dislikes. Only now did I realize that all the things she told me she loved or hated were never absolute truths. They were choices depending on the person she was with. And I was the one she chose not to choose. Clutching the now lukewarm soup, I walked away. The door to the auditorium was slightly ajar, and I could hear the sound of a piano and a man and woman singing a duet. It was a song I knew well, a romantic ballad Sophia had made me sing with her at karaoke bars countless times. Only now, her partner was Leo. Through the glass panel on the door, I saw them standing face to face, gazing deeply into each other's eyes. Her eyes held a sparkle I had never seen before. As they reached the chorus, Leo's hand rested naturally on her waist. I held my breath, waiting for her to push him away. I knew how much she hated being touched without permission, but she didn't. Instead, she leaned into him slightly, closing the distance between them. When his fingers traced a line down her back, she offered him a shy smile in return. Her gaze was so tender it was practically tangible. Leo's every move was perfectly calibrated, intimate, but not crossing any lines. His focus was locked on Sophia, as if she were the only person in the world. I suddenly understood. This wasn't a spontaneous moment. It was a carefully calculated seduction. The song ended, and the rehearsal room erupted in applause. Someone shouted, "That was incredible! You two are a match made in heaven." The top prize for the showcase is definitely yours. Leo, looking pleased with himself, leaned down and planted a soft kiss on Sophia's forehead. Her cheeks flushed, but she only gave him a playful little shove. I took a step back and walked away. Back in my dorm room, I pulled out the box where I kept all the gifts Sophia had ever given me. Each item was once a precious memory. Now, they were just monuments to a lie. A hand-knitted blue scarf she'd spent a month making. That winter was brutal, and she'd insisted I wear it every day, saying she didn't want me to catch a cold. A book of poetry we'd both spotted at the same time in a bookstore. She'd bought it for me secretly and written on the inside cover, "To read with you through every sunrise and sunset." And there was the lopsided, handmade ceramic mug from our first pottery class. She had laughed and said, "You have to drink your coffee from this mug for the rest of your life. Don't you dare throw it away." I took them out one by one, preparing to throw them all in the trash. At the bottom of the box was a photo album. I hesitated for a second, then opened it. The very first picture stung my eyes. It was from a freshman year track meet. She had snuck up and kissed me on the cheek when no one was looking, and Chloe had snapped a picture. I was frozen in surprise while she grinned like a cat that got the cream. That evening, as the sun set, we sat on the bleachers. She suddenly looked at me, her expression serious. "Caleb, we have to get into the same university. And after we graduate, we'll get married, okay?" 3. We have to get in first, I teased. Her voice turned wistful. "You're so smart, you'll definitely get into a top school like Caltech. But I'll probably only get into WWU. Would you stay here for me?" I didn't answer right away, and her eyes immediately welled up with tears. "I knew you wouldn't." To calm her down, I promised her on the spot. "I promise. Wherever you go, I'll go." "Really?" I nodded solemnly. And I kept my word. I turned down an early decision, full-ride scholarship to Caltech, to go to Westwood University with her. It led to a massive fight with my parents. I won, but my father, a Marine veteran, got so angry he smashed a prize bottle of 20-year-old Pappy Van Winkle he'd been saving for 38 years. The day our acceptance letters from WWU arrived, she hugged me, crying and laughing at the same time. "Caleb, you're the best. I'll be good to you for the rest of my life." I flipped through the album, a chronicle of our 10 years together. The last photo was from her birthday last year. After she blew out the candles, I asked what she wished for. She smiled and said, "To be with you forever." Looking back now, her smile already seemed a little forced. Maybe she was tired of me, tired of our relationship, long before Leo Vance ever showed up. I closed the album, packed in the box with everything else, and carried it down to the dumpster behind the dorm. Late that night, I stood at my window, watching the lights in the campus buildings go out one by one. My phone screen remained dark. Not a single message from her. Maybe Chloe was right. I was just a kid who wouldn't grow up, desperately clinging to a love that had already faded. But tonight, that kid finally grew up. I sent a text to my dad. "Dad, can you do me a favor and make a call? I want to see if it's too late to transfer to Caltech." The next day was Leo's birthday. I didn't want to go, but a few of my friends who didn't know what was going on practically dragged me to a karaoke bar off campus. The private room was loud and chaotic, with Leo at the center of it all, holding court. Sophia was sitting right next to him, her smile radiant. I found the darkest corner of the room and tried to make myself invisible. But I'd barely sat down when a figure appeared in front of me. I looked up. It was Sophia. Her face was etched with displeasure as she looked down at me. "Come outside. We need to talk." Her tone was sharp. She didn't wait for a response, just turned and walked out. I followed her silently down the noisy hallway until we stopped in a relatively quiet alcove. "Caleb, what is your problem?" she demanded, whirling around to face me. "Why didn't you text me today? Not a single message. What kind of game are you playing?" Her questions were aggressive, as if I were the one completely in the wrong. Looking at her, the icy shock I'd felt outside the green room washed over me again. But this time it wasn't painful. It was just numb. I met her gaze calmly, my voice flat. "It's not a game. I just figured I shouldn't interrupt you and Leo while you're practicing your love song." My words were like a lit match. Sophia's anger flared. "Caleb," she snapped, her voice rising with that familiar tone of annoyance and accusation. "Could you be any more petty? You're mad about a song. Can you please just grow up and stop being so jealous all the time?" "It was for the Thanksgiving showcase. It's called being a professional. Have you ever heard of it?" Her words came out in a rapid-fire barrage. In the past, I would have backed down, convinced I was the one being unreasonable. But now all I felt was a profound sense of exhaustion. Just then, Leo walked over. "Soph, what are you doing out here? Everyone's waiting for you to cut the cake." He approached casually, positioning himself next to her, his arm brushing her shoulder as if by accident. Then, he pretended to notice me for the first time, a look of perfect surprise and polite concern on his face. "Caleb, hey, didn't see you there." Under the dim lights of the hallway, he casually adjusted his collar. Something on his wrist caught the neon glow. It was a handmade bracelet, woven from pieces of sea glass, each one carefully smoothed and drilled, arranged in a unique, harmonious pattern. My eyes locked onto it. My heart felt like it had been seized by an icy hand, stopping my breath. I knew that bracelet. Sophia had told me, countless times, that she'd found a special kind of rare sea glass on our trip to the coast last summer. She was going to make me a one-of-a-kind birthday present. She said the weaving technique was complicated and took her forever to learn. She'd been working on it for 7 months, collecting the glass, sanding it, drilling the holes, and finally weaving it together. She had smiled and said, "Caleb, your next birthday present is going to absolutely blow your mind." And now, that gift, the one she'd spent 7 months making, the one that was supposed to blow my mind, was on Leo Vance's wrist. Leo noticed me staring. The corner of his mouth twitched into a barely perceptible smirk. He deliberately lifted his hand, his fingers toying with the pieces of glass, making them click softly together. His tone was breezy, almost boastful, as he turned to Sophia, his voice softening. "Thanks for the birthday present, Soph. I love it. It's really special." He put extra emphasis on the words, "really special." Sophia's anger hadn't completely faded. Hearing Leo, her expression became guarded. She glanced away, avoiding my eyes. She didn't deny it. She didn't show a shred of remorse. She just offered a small smile. "I'm glad you like it." In that instant, I heard something inside me shatter completely. The last pathetic flicker of hope I'd been holding onto was extinguished. Not even ashes remained. 10 years could be as light and meaningless as a handful of glass on a string. A promise of one-of-a-kind could be so easily transferred to someone else. It wasn't that I was being petty. It was that she had already, openly and shamelessly, given all her affection to another man. When your heart is completely broken, you stop feeling the pain. All that's left is a silent, barren wasteland. I lifted my head, my gaze sweeping past Leo's smug, calculating face to rest on Sophia. I took a deep breath, and my voice came out with unnerving calm. "No anger. No accusation. Not even a tremor. Sophia, we're done." She froze, clearly not expecting me to be the one to end it. Leo stepped forward, his face a mask of regret. "Caleb, if I did something to upset you, I am so sorry. I really am. I never wanted to get in the way of your relationship." His voice was sincere, every word perfectly rehearsed. I watched his performance, feeling nothing but a profound emptiness. The guy was a master manipulator. Even his apology was flawless. Sophia cut him off, her voice sharp. "It has nothing to do with you, Leo." She turned back to me, her tone now ice cold. "It's because Caleb is being insecure. It was just one stupid song, and he's been sulking about it ever since." I looked at her familiar face and suddenly felt like I was looking at a stranger. 10 years had passed between us, and in the end, they had left nothing behind. All those moments I had cherished as profound expressions of love were, in her eyes, just fleeting trifles. Leo chimed in at the perfect moment. Maybe we should change the song back. I can't let this ruin a relationship you've had for years." Sophia scoffed. "Don't bother. If he wants to break up, let him. Whatever. 5. That was the final stone dropping into the frozen lake of my heart. It didn't even make a ripple. I turned and walked away, the noise of the party fading behind me. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. "It's done. You can report to Caltech right after Thanksgiving break." Thanksgiving came quickly. That morning, I received a special admissions packet from Caltech. A crimson envelope with a gold-embossed university seal held a handwritten acceptance letter. I slid it carefully into my backpack. It felt like a ticket to a new life. That night, the university auditorium was packed for the showcase. I sat in the very last row, my packed duffel bag on the seat beside me. On stage, Sophia and Leo's duet was as flawless as it had been in rehearsal. She was radiant in a silver dress. He was impossibly handsome in a tailored suit. Their voices intertwined, and every shared glance sent a fresh wave of cheers through the audience. Watching them under the spotlights, moving in perfect harmony, I understood a simple truth. Some people are just passing through your life, no matter how close you once were. As the final note faded, the applause was deafening. The judges announced they had won first place. Leo accepted the trophy, then abruptly turned, leaned in, and kissed Sophia full on her crimson lips. Her body tensed for a split second, but she didn't push him away. Instead, she tilted her head back slightly and closed her eyes. The entire auditorium erupted. People were cheering, whistling, clapping like thunder. In the midst of that overwhelming joy, I pulled out my phone and blocked Sophia's number, blocked her on every social media app. Then I quietly stood up, shouldered my bag, and walked out of the auditorium. The cool night air hit my face. I didn't look back. I just kept walking. The showcase wasn't quite over. The applause was still rolling. Sophia's gaze kept drifting over the audience, searching for the one person she was sure would be there, the person she expected to be watching her at that very moment. Not in the front rows. Not in the middle. The back. It was too dark to see clearly. He had to be here, right? How could he not be? He was always there for moments like this. Always watching her with that focused, smiling gaze, as if she were the only thing that mattered. When Leo had kissed her, Sophia's body had gone rigid for an instant. The warm press of his lips on hers sent a jolt through her, and the first thought that flashed through her mind was, "No, Caleb will see this. What will he think?" She had, even subconsciously, turned her head a fraction of an inch, a barely perceptible resistance. But Leo's hold was firm, and a thunderous applause from the audience acted like an invisible force, pinning her in place. Whatever she thought, it's just a celebratory kiss. It's for the show. Everyone's watching. Pushing him away would be even more awkward. She told herself this as she finally accepted the kiss, even managing a weak response to make it look natural and passionate. But deep down, a seed of guilt, like a drop of ink in clear water, began to spread, bringing with it a subtle unease. Caleb was going to be upset. He was such a jealous guy. He'd pout for hours if she spent too much time talking about homework with another guy. But another feeling quickly took over. So what if they kissed? Was it really that big a deal? On such an important night, couldn't he be a little more understanding? She could already picture him sulking, probably giving her the silent treatment for a day or two. But he would be the one to break first. He always did. He'd show up with an apology and her favorite snacks, begging her not to be mad, and everything would go back to normal. This time would be no different. She was already rehearsing her lines in her head, planning her logical and reasonable defense for when he inevitably confronted her, ready to prove that he was the one being petty and immature. 6. The showcase finally ended on a high note. Leo was in great spirits and invited her and a few friends out to a bar to celebrate. Sophia pushed aside the strange emptiness she was feeling and smiled, agreeing to go. The bar was loud, the lights dizzying. Leo thoughtfully ordered her a cocktail, and their friends gathered around, teasing them, celebrating their win, calling them a perfect match. Sophia held her glass, a polite smile fixed on her face as she navigated the conversations. But strangely, amidst all the noise, her mind kept wandering. Looking at Leo's handsome profile, she would suddenly picture Caleb's focused expression as he made soup. Listening to her friends joke about her and Leo, she would faintly hear a memory from long ago. Caleb, standing under her window, clumsily but earnestly promising, "I'll always be good to you." She took a sip of her drink, trying to banish these unwelcome thoughts. But his ghost stubbornly clung to her. It was only then that it dawned on her. Ever since that night in the karaoke bar hallway, when Caleb had calmly said they were done, he hadn't contacted her at all. An entire week. No calls, no texts, no DMs. The last message in their chat history was from before the party, him asking her what kind of soup she wanted that night. This was impossible. On any other day in the last 10 years, this would never have happened. The longest they'd ever gone without speaking was maybe half a day, and it ended with Caleb appearing at her dorm with a bag full of her favorite junk food. He was always the one to apologize first, to compromise, to extend the olive branch. Sophia had grown so accustomed to this pattern that she took it for granted, believing his forgiveness was a safety net that would never disappear. But now, that net seemed to have vanished without a sound. She instinctively pulled out her phone. The screen was painfully clean. No missed calls. No new messages. She tapped on his profile. His last post was from before the rehearsal, a link to a song she once said she liked. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the keyboard, wanting to type something. A question? An accusation? Or just a casual, "Hey, what's up?" In the end, she locked the screen. Why should she be the first to reach out? He was the one who overreacted. He was the one who got jealous. He was the one who said it was over. He should be the one to come crawling back. She tried to convince herself of this, to suppress the growing anxiety in her chest. "Sophia, what's wrong? You seem a million miles away." Leo's voice cut through her thoughts. He leaned in closer, his tone concerned. "Are you tired?" Sophia snapped back to the present, forcing a smile. "No, I'm fine. It's just a little loud in here." "Want to get out of here, then?" Leo's hand rested on her shoulder. "It's after midnight. The dorms are probably locked. We could just get a hotel room for the night." Sophia tensed slightly. She knew exactly what he was implying. After a long, internal struggle, she refused. Leo looked disappointed, but didn't push it. Back in her dorm, after she had washed up and crawled into bed, the silence of the room only amplified the feeling of emptiness. Sophia couldn't help but pick up her phone again, and on a strange impulse, she started scrolling through her old chat history with Caleb. She scrolled up and up, through a dense forest of his messages. "Morning. It's getting cold out. Wear a jacket. Brought you breakfast. It's downstairs. Don't work too hard at rehearsal. Remember to drink this soup. Good night. See you tomorrow." Trivial, mundane, even a little nagging. She used to ignore most of them or reply with a single K, or got it. But he never stopped, day after day. 7. She opened her photo gallery, wanted to look at some of their old pictures together. Then she remembered that most of them were on an old cloud account, an account Caleb had set up for her. She couldn't remember the password. She tried a few of her usual passwords, but none of them worked. Frustrated, she gave up. Sophia didn't sleep well that night. Her dreams were a chaotic jumble of images. Caleb's calm, emotionless eyes as he walked away from her, and the way his eyes used to light up whenever he looked at her. When she woke up the next morning, the strange sense of panic hadn't faded. It had grown stronger. She forced herself to go on a date with Leo, a movie, then dinner. He was as charming and attentive as ever, absolutely flawless. But something fell off. She felt like she was playing a part, unable to truly connect. At dinner, Leo carefully cut her steak for her and passed her the plate. She stared down at it and, out of nowhere, said, "Caleb knew I hate bell peppers. He always picked them out for me." Leo's hand paused. The smile on his face faltered. "Sophia, are you thinking about him?" She froze, realizing what she just said. She shook her head and quietly started eating, not saying another word. But the hole in her heart felt like it had just gotten a little bigger. The next few days passed, and still, there was no word from Caleb. Thanksgiving break was almost over, and Sophia was getting restless. She started checking her phone constantly, checking her cell signal, wondering if her phone was broken or if her bill was overdue. She sent a meaningless text to Chloe, who replied almost instantly. The phone was working fine. She checked Caleb's social media profile. That song he had shared was still his last post. She scrutinized his profile picture and his bio, looking for any clue, but found nothing. She even started stalking the profiles of their mutual friends, hoping someone had seen him or mentioned him. Still nothing. It was like he had vanished off the face of the earth, completely disappearing from her world. That realization was like a cold tide, slowly creeping up her ankles, her calves, her knees, bringing with it a slow but undeniable chill. On the last day of the break, Sophia was a nervous wreck. She turned down Leo's invitation to hang out, telling him she wasn't feeling well. She stayed in her dorm room alone, unable to sit still. The certainty that he'll definitely be back was crumbling, replaced by a kind of panic she had never felt before. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She dialed Caleb's number. What she heard wasn't his familiar ringtone, but a cold, robotic voice. "We're sorry. The number you have dialed is not in service." His phone was off. Impossible. Caleb's phone was on 24/7, especially for her. He always said he was afraid she'd have a nightmare or need him in the middle of the night and not be able to reach him. Refusing to give up, she opened her messaging app and typed a text. "Where are you? We need to talk." She hit send. A second later, a glaring red exclamation mark appeared next to her message. Message failed to send. The recipient may have blocked your number. Sophia stared at the red icon, her pupils constricting. Her fingers went ice cold. Blocked. He had actually blocked her. This wasn't just sulking. This wasn't the silent treatment. This was drawing a line in the sand, cutting off all contact for good. A tidal wave of disbelief and terror crashed over her. She shot up from her bed, so fast the room spun, and she had to grab her bedpost to steady herself. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, blood rushing to her head, a buzzing sound in her ears. How dare he? The next day, Sophia couldn't sit still. She searched the entire campus for him. The lecture halls, the library, the dining hall, the basketball court he always went to, all empty. No sign of that familiar figure. She stood outside the men's dorm, and after a moment's hesitation, walked inside. The RA at the front desk glanced up but didn't stop her. She went straight to the third floor and knocked on Caleb's door. His roommate opened it, looking surprised to see her. "Hi, is Caleb here?" He hasn't been back." The roommate's expression was odd. "He moved out before the break." Moved out? Sophia was stunned. To another dorm? Or an apartment? "I don't know. He didn't say." Sophia just stood there, her hands and feet turning to ice. She didn't even remember how she got back downstairs. The sunlight was bright, but she felt a bone-deep chill. Standing at the entrance to the dorm, she tried calling Caleb's number one last time, a desperate, futile gesture. Still disconnected. That afternoon, she went to class in a daze. She sat in her usual seat, but her eyes kept darting to the classroom door, hoping, praying he would suddenly appear. He never did. During a break, she overheard two girls in front of her talking in low voices. "No way, really? Caltech? That was so sudden." "Totally." The acceptance letter came, and he left right after the holiday. "I heard those transfer spots are basically impossible to get." But didn't he turn down a full ride from them before? Why the sudden change? Who knows? Sophia's heart leaped in her throat. She stood up and walked over to their desks. "Excuse me, who are you talking about?" Her voice was trembling. The two girls jumped, startled. When they saw it was her, their expressions turned strange. "Who else?" one of them muttered. "The physics department genius, Caleb Miller." "Caltech." Sophia repeated the word, her throat suddenly dry. "He went to Caltech?" "I guess so," the other girl said vaguely. "That's just what we heard." Sophia didn't wait to hear more. She turned and ran out of the classroom, sprinting to the main academic building, to the bulletin board in the lobby. Under a section for school announcements, a new notice was pinned to the board. Her eyes scanned the official documents until they landed on a freshly posted memo at the bottom. It was a brief, formal announcement regarding the transfer of our student, Caleb Miller, to the California Institute of Technology. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. Black ink on white paper, stamped with the university's official red seal. Sophia stared at the notice, feeling the blood freeze in her veins. It was only in that moment that she finally, truly, began to understand. Caleb's "we're done" wasn't an empty threat. It wasn't a cry for attention. It was a statement of fact. The boy who had clung to her for 10 years, the boy who had treated her like she was his entire world, was really gone. At Caltech, my life was a whirlwind of classes, labs, and research. I was no longer Caleb, Sophia's boyfriend. I was just Caleb. My days were structured and demanding. Up at 6 for a run, then hours in the library, then project work. The pace was relentless, but it felt solid, real. My advisor was Professor Hayes, a stern but fair member of the National Academy of Sciences. He never treated me differently for being a mid-year transfer. In fact, he seemed to respect my focus. "Caleb, this is my granddaughter, Maya," he said one day, gesturing to a young woman with long, dark hair standing behind him. "She's in the research group as well. You two should collaborate." Maya Hayes looked up at me, her gaze clear and direct. We gave each other a slight nod. That was the extent of our introduction. At first, Maya was exactly as she seemed, reserved. Our discussions were brief and to the point. When we worked late, processing data, we'd sit on opposite sides of the lab in silence, the only sounds the clicking of our keyboards. The shift happened after a late-night equipment failure. A critical sensor malfunctioned, corrupting an entire dataset. I rushed back to the lab, only to find Maya already there, her brow furrowed in concentration. "What are you doing here?" I asked, surprised. "My grandfather said the data was probably a lost cause. I wanted to see if I could salvage any of it," she said without looking up from her screen. We spent the entire night rewriting the data interface, and by dawn, we had managed to recover over 80% of the lost information. As the sun came up, she finally leaned back in her chair and said softly, "You're surprisingly capable under pressure." After that, the ice between us melted. She started asking for my opinions on projects, and during breaks, we'd sometimes talk about our lives before Caltech. I rarely mentioned Westwood or my ex-girlfriend, and she never pried. All she said once was, "You seem like you carry a lot around with you." One day, I came down with a nasty cold, but insisted on coming into the lab. She didn't say anything, but at lunch, a container of hot soup and a box of cold medicine appeared on my desk. I looked up at her, and she quickly turned away, but I could see the tips of her ears were red. I knew what Maya was feeling, but I just crawled out from under the shadow of a decade-long relationship, and I didn't have the energy to start a new one. After lunch one day, I told her directly, "I'm just not ready to think about that stuff right now. I'm sorry." Maya was quiet for a moment, then she offered a small smile. "It's okay. I'm not trying to pressure you. I just think you're a good person, and you deserve to be treated well." She didn't back away. If anything, her quiet kindness became more apparent. She'd remind me to grab a jacket when a cold front was moving in or leave a mug of hot tea on my desk when I was pulling an all-nighter. It was never pushy, never overt, just a steady, gentle presence. Sometimes I would think about the 10 years I had invested in Sophia, but it no longer felt like a raw wound. It was more like watching a story about someone else. Here, no one knew who Sophia was. No one looked at me with pity or curiosity. I was just Caleb, a student starting over. Professor Hayes once told me in private, "You seem much more relaxed than when you first arrived." I just smiled. I knew he was right. Some wounds were finally starting to heal. And through it all, Maya was there, not too close but never far away. A quiet, steady light. Over winter break, Professor Hayes was invited to give a week-long lecture series at Westwood University. He brought me and Maya along as his research assistants. On the very first day, I ran into Sophia on campus. She had lost weight, and there were dark circles under her eyes. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, her voice choked with emotion. "Caleb, I know I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance." She reached out to hug me. I took a step back, avoiding her embrace. "Sophia, we're over. Please don't do this." Her eyes darkened. She bit her lip, turned, and walked away. I thought that would be the end of it, but she was back the next day, holding a thermos. I learned how to make your favorite soup. Will you try it? Before I could refuse, Leo Vance came storming out a nearby building, pointing a finger at me. Caleb, what kind of man are you? He yelled. Don't you see everything Sophia is doing for you? Then he turned to Sophia, his voice softening. He's not worth it, Soph. Please, don't degrade yourself like this. Sophia shot him a venomous look. Leo, this has nothing to do with you. Just then, Maya walked up. She came to my side, and then, with a confidence that stunned me, she held out her hand to Sophia and smiled. Maya, yes. Caleb's girlfriend. I was speechless, but I didn't correct her. Leo stared at Maya, his expression shifting from shock to pure resentment. He redirected all his anger at me. Wow, Milla, you move on fast, huh? Already got a replacement. Sophia's lucky she got rid of you when she did. Slap. The sound cracked through the air. Sophia's hand was still raised, her voice trembling with cold fury. Leo, my life is not your business. If it wasn't for you, Caleb would never have left me. He held a hand to his reddening cheek, his eyes wide with disbelief. Sophia, I've done nothing but be there for you. Don't you know how I feel about you? Sophia didn't even look at him. Her eyes were fixed on me, her expression a blizzard of emotions I couldn't decipher. Then she turned, thermos in hand, and walked away. Leo stood frozen for a moment, his face a mask of humiliation, before he, too, stalked off. Maya finally let go of my arm. Sorry, she said quietly. I shouldn't have done that. I shook my head. No, thank you. She gave me a small, sad smile, and we left it at that. Soon enough, it was time to head back to Pasadena. The shuttle started to pull away from the curb, and I saw a crowd of students waving goodbye. I sat by the window, my gaze calm as I took in the familiar, yet distant, sights of the Westwood campus. Just as the shuttle was about to turn out of the main gate, I saw her, standing alone at the edge of the crowd. Sophia. She wasn't waving or smiling. She was just watching me, her long hair blowing in the autumn wind, making her look small and fragile. I held her gaze for a second, then turned away. My heart was as still as a windless lake, not a single ripple. Just then, a warm hand gently covered mine. I turned to meet Maya's clear eyes. Caleb, she said, her voice soft but incredibly steady. There's something I want to tell you. The campus began to blur outside the window, receding like a past I could never return to. I know you're not completely ready, she continued, her fingers tightening slightly around mine. But I'm willing to wait. Not because I feel sorry for you, and not on a whim. It's because I really, really like you. I looked at her, and I thought of all those late nights working side by side in the lab, the cold medicine she left on my desk, all the small, quiet moments of warmth she had offered me without asking for anything in return. I turned my hand over and laced my fingers through hers. You don't have to wait, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Let's start now. She blinked, and a brilliant light of surprise and joy filled her eyes. Are you sure? I nodded, squeezing her hand. I'm sure. Some scars might never fade completely, but they didn't hurt anymore. And some people are destined to appear at the right time, in the right way. A beautiful smile spread across Maya's face. It wasn't dazzling and dramatic like Sophia's. It was warm and gentle, like sunlight in the spring. She rested her head lightly on my shoulder, our intertwined hands resting on my knee. Outside, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. I closed my eyes, feeling the gentle weight on my shoulder and the warmth in my hand. This time, there was no hesitation, no doubt, no ghosts of the past. There was only a quiet acceptance of a new and precious warmth. The future was long, but I knew, with absolute certainty, that this time I had made the right choice.